Hey there, developers! Are you ready to unlock the secrets of authentication in Node.js microservices? If you're tired of Googling how do I secure my APIs, or struggling with tokens, refresh cycles, or multi-server setups, then stop right here. This video is going to change everything for you. In this single action-packed session, you'll learn how to build a secure, scalable authentication system for your microservices, the difference between access tokens and refresh tokens, and why you need both, how to make your APIs stateless, ready for containerization and modern architectures, and the magic of sharing authentication seamlessly across multiple servers. Oh, and we're not just talking theory here. We're diving straight into hands-on coding. Step by step, you'll see real-world examples and leave with the confidence to implement this in your projects today. But wait, here's the kicker. Every single chapter builds on the previous one. If you skip even one section, you might miss a critical piece of the puzzle. And you don't want to be the developer who leaves security holes in their app, right? So grab your coffee, open your code editor, and let's turn authentication into your superpower.
Now let's kick off our journey into JWT Authentication with Node.js and Express. Don't worry, we are going to take this slow and steady step by step. And here is the game plan. Part 1, we will set up simple JWT authentication. This will include creating tokens, sending those tokens to users, verifying tokens on our server. Then in the part 2, we will dive into refresh tokens. These little helpers will automatically refresh our JWT tokens for added security and revoke access for users or systems we don't trust anymore, like logging them off. Excited? Let's get started. So first thing, let's set up our playground. So fire up your Visual Studio Code or your any favorite text editor and create a shiny new folder for your project. Are you done with that? Ready? Now, next thing, open up your terminal. I'll be using my built-in terminal in my Visual Studio Code. Then we will initialize our project using npm init -y. So I'm assuming you already have some basic understanding of JavaScript and Node.js. If you're still new to all this, make sure you have Node.js installed on your machine, and that is simple as visiting their official website and downloading the installer and just keep hitting next until it is installed. Okay? Now, to make sure that you have Node, so what I will do first, I'll show you how to do that. So Node -v, and that should show up the version for you in your terminal. If it doesn't show up, it says Node is not, it's unknown command. That means Node is not installed in your machine. So just visit again, like I said, the website and feel free to install it. Now, let's go back to our playground and let's initialize our project. So npm init -y. So this command will create a basic package.json file with all the default settings. If I go and open it up and I'll close a little bit my terminal, you can see it just have some default like name of my project, which I'll go ahead and rename it. Save this and we are all good. Now it have some basic scripts, so that we will change later, and also some keywords and author and license. So as long as you know you're working on side project, these properties doesn't really matter. Now, let's grab some essential libraries that we will need for our project, and we will start with the main star of the show, which is express.js. So go back to your terminal, make sure you are in your folder, and run npm install express. And this one basically will help us to create our server that will be running for our project. Next thing, we need the JSON Web Token. This library helps us to handle JWTs with very ease and no difficulties. So we go back again to our terminal and say npm install JSON Web Token, all in single word. Now, after that one is done, and to keep our secrets, well, secret, we will grab .env for managing the .env files for our project. So we will install again another one. So npm install .env. Go ahead and hit enter and install that as well. Now, for convenience during the development, we will use a handy tool called Nodeman. So this Nodeman, it automatically restarts our server whenever we make some changes. Okay, so we don't have to save and go rerun our server again manually. It will do that for us. So I will go ahead and install. So npm install Nodeman. And because this one will be only work in your dev environment, so that will be a dev dependency. So dash dash save dash dev. Hit enter. Now, while that installs, here's a joke for you. Why did Node.js server go to therapy? Think about it and put a comment in the section of what you think. Now, all right, back to work. Let's configure our Nodeman to make our lives easier. So we'll go up and open up our package.json and we'll go inside our script section and we will add a new script basically. Okay, so the first one will be start. And this script basically will help us to run our server. So we'll say node space index.js. And we will create another one for the dev environment. So we'll call this dev. And instead of using node, we'll be using nodeman. And if you remember, we said nodeman help us to reload our server locally whenever we do changes. And that's why I have two different scripts here. So nodeman space index.js. And index.js will be a file we'll be creating later, which will be our actual server for this project. I will click save. Now, every time we run npm run dev in our terminal, Nodeman will keep eye on our files and restart the server when needed. Now, how cool is that? Now, next thing is to secure the vault, okay? And we'll go into depth into this later. So we'll just go with initial setup for now. So we'll create a .env file. So I'll create a new file, call it .env. And basically this file will be for our secret tokens, okay? And should be in the root folder of your project. So go ahead and create it. And what I will do here, I'll just add something, a new key, which is called JWT secret. And I don't have any key yet, so I'll just save it. And later in this course, we'll be actually seeing how to create these keys and how to add them to our project as well. Now, a pro tip for you, make sure you replaced this your super secret key with something really secret, like the name of your childhood imaginary friend or your favorite pizza topping, okay? Anything that other people can't figure it out. Now, next step, the setup, okay? So what we will do, we will go and create our file for our server, and we used a name as index.js, so we'll create that file. Okay. And before I write any code for my server, I need to add some configuration, for example, for my .nav. So let me do that first. So I'll create a new folder, which I will call config. And this folder basically will handle any configurations that we need, okay? So inside this config, I will add a new file called env.js. And then what I will do, I will import the .nav that we installed earlier. So, and then we initialize it, .env.config. And then after that, we'll just export it with a JWT secret key, okay? That will be taken from the .env file. So we say export const config, and that will be equal to JWT secret. So you can call this anything you like, just make sure it's meaningful. Then process dot env dot and whatever name we put right there, okay? So dot JWT underscore secret. Great. Now what I will do is I will create a folder to hold up my servers because at some point we are running multiple servers at a time. So I'll create a new folder that I will call server. And then inside that, I'll create a new file called index.js. Okay. Then what I will do is import Express. The next thing to import our config that we created from our config.net. Then we'll create an instance of our server by just initializing our Express and assigning it to a new constant, which we call it app. And you can call this anything you like. Next thing is to find a basic route that will listen to the main route, the home route. And all what it does is it's just sending a basic message saying, welcome to my modular node app for now. Okay, so we're not doing much. Now, next thing is basically create and listen to our server that we will be using to start with. Okay, so I created a new server that's listening to the port through 3000. And while I'm listening to it, for at the moment, I'm just logging off this message saying that my server is running at this port right here. Cool. So this is our basic server. Now you may notice before I jump to my main server is that I'm not using this config at the moment, but we'll be using it later of this video. Now I will save this file, then go back to my main server. And what I will do in here, I'll just call up the server I defined inside my other folder. So we keep everything clear. So I'll say import start server from server, and then we'll just trigger that at the moment. So start server. Great. So as we said in our script, we were running the dev in our local machine. So let's go ahead, open your terminal, and let's test it. So npm run dev. And let's see if this one will work. Now I can see I have an error and it says cannot use import statements outside a module. And that's because we didn't tell the project that we're following a modular practice. So go back to your package.json and add a type of module. So type is module. Good. Now save that and go and run your command again in npm run dev. And let's open this. And you can see we run into a new problem, which says internal blinding error trigger and caught exception. Okay, and basically it directly says here is that Microsoft Auth server is not supported to resolving US imported. And you can see here it's not supporting basically the way I'm importing my files. So what I will do, I'll go back here and I'll say it's /env.js. So how to define the full path. I go back here as well. I'll say /index.js. Okay. And we'll fix these things later of this course as well. Now let's try to run our command and hopefully now it's all good and happy. And you can see, I can see now the message coming up. Server is running at localhost 3000. Okay, and that is the message we are displaying when we are listening to our server. Now, if you go to your browser and you try to access your local host, and I'll say 3000. Now you can see the other message, welcome to the modular Node.js app. And that is the one we are sending as a response of our API call to the main home route. So using the module pattern makes your app actually easier to read and test and scale it up as well. Each part of the app does one thing and does it well. And trust me, future you will thank you for this. Now that our modular setup is ready, we're all set to dive into creating and managing JWT tokens in the next chapter. So get ready to level up your skills and learn more fun tricks along the way. Remember, programming is all about building step by step. Don't try to boil the ocean. Just start with one drop at a time. See you in the next chapter. Now let's take the first step towards building our bookstore app. Imagine an online store where users can order their favorite books and we manage those orders. Sounds fun, right? So let's dive in and start by creating a basic route to fetch all the book orders. So first thing we need is to organize our code by creating a dedicated module for orders. So we'll start by creating a new folder structure as so. So inside our server folder, we'll create a new folder which calls routes. And inside that folder, we'll create a new file for orders. So orders.js. Good. Now, next step is define the orders route. So inside this routes folder, now we created the orders.js, and this file will handle all operations related to orders. And this is how our code will look like. First thing, we import Express. Next thing is to find an instance of our route, const, I'll call it router, that will be equal to express dot router. Great. Next thing, we'll just make a mock data for our orders to start with. Okay, and you can see these orders have ID, a book, and UID as well, which is the user, and then the order total as well. Okay, to create a route to fetch all orders. Okay, and the way we do that, we use the instance of the route we created, router, then dot, we have a get call, which will be to our route, for example, slash orders. Great. Then we will define what this will happen when someone visits this route. And this arrow function will take in two parameters, which is the request and also the response. Now inside our order, we'll not do anything fancy to start with for now, but all what we'll do is just send back that mock orders data we created. So res.json to make sure we transform it into a JSON format, and then we are just passing the orders as orders, okay? But because they are, so here, let me fix this, but because they are the same names, okay, so this one basically the field we're sending, and this one it is the data we are sending. So we can just use a shortcut like this because they have the same naming. Great. Now we created our route. Let's export it and make it available to our server. So export default router. Good. Hopefully this makes sense. So as a recap again, we just created an instance of our router. Then we created an array just for mock data to start with. And then we created or defined a route for slash orders with a get call. Okay. And then we are just sending back a JSON format of our orders. Now, after that, we need to connect the route to the server, of course. So we'll go to our server, which is here. And what I will do first thing is import my route that I created. So import, I'll call it orders router from, so slash route slash orders.js. Good. Now next thing is to use this orders router. And the way to do it is very easy. After you define your app server, we will use that app.use, and then we will add a relative path before actual our route, but this is optional. So I'll say slash API. So I want slash API slash and any endpoint I create. So slash API, then the second argument is my actual route. So orders router. And that is simple as this. Now we will go to our index.js, and basically we don't have to do anything because this is a modular, so all the logic is actually happening in the actual server file. Now we need to test our API, and we have two methods. Either you can use browser or you can use as well the Post. So if you don't have Postman installed in your machine, feel free to visit their website and go ahead and install it for your appropriate system. It's also very straightforward, and I already have it installed on my machine, and this is how the desktop version app looks like. Okay. Otherwise, we can just use the browser at the moment, but at some point, we will be editing and deleting and so on. You would need actually to use Postman and also for authentication. My browser and do slash API slash orders, which is a new route we created. we should see the list of our data showing our screen because that's what we are doing at the moment. If I go to my dev tool and I'll go to network and I'll just hard reload, you can see that's my router slash orders that we created. Okay, it's coming back with a response of an array with orders. Okay, field, and that orders field is assigned an array of the object. Now, if you want to do this on Postman, you can just go ahead, open Postman, click New tab, and we have get call, and we'll do local host 3000 slash API slash orders, and click send. And we get a 200 response back, which is amazing. And I can see here the response showing in my log, which is an orders property assigned an array of my two list orders that I hard coded in our file. So you can see the Postman is have very friendly interface and it's very easy to use, and it is a lifesaver, as you will discover when we continue in this course as well. So once our app grows, we will dive into Postman's more powerful features like automated test suites and secure conversions as well. Now that we have a basic route for fetching orders, let's add more functionality in the next chapter, and we will explore how to create new orders and secure our API with JWT authentication. So stay tuned, it's going to be very awesome. Now in this chapter, we are diving into authentication using JSON Web Token or JWT. This ensures that only specific users can access our app's route. We will keep it simple and explain every step clearly so that even complete beginners can follow along with us. So first question is why to authenticate? Now imagine your app is a treasure chest like a slash orders endpoint. You don't want just anyone grabbing the treasure, right? Authentication ensures that only verified users with the right keys, which will be tokens, can open that chest. Now, first thing is we need to add a user's endpoint. And let's define some users to authenticate. So in our app, we'll add an endpoint to handle the users for us. Now, same thing we did earlier for our orders, we'll be doing same for the users as well. So we'll create a new file under routes. We'll call it users.js. And inside here, basically, we will create an endpoint for slash users, and we will do again same thing as here. So first thing is to import Express and create instance of our route. Then we'll make a mock data for users and we will start with two users so we can keep testing things between them. Okay, so they have a new ID and also the passwords passed on as well. Next thing is to create a get. So we'll be doing router.get slash users and then we are passing on that user's mock data as a response. Okay, and other thing we did then is just we exposed our router and we make it available. So we'll go right here and say export default router. Then we'll link our route to our server as we did for orders route, and we can just do almost the same thing. So I just copy and paste that, but what I will do I import the route. So import users router from, and we do slash routers route slash users .js. Okay, then we pass that one as a second argument for our use function. Great. Now, let's test this first and make sure all is working as expected. So I will go to Postman and instead of slash orders, I will do slash users. And you can see I'm getting the list of my users successfully now. So basically we created just a simple array to store our users and return them back to us to our screen. Now, next thing is to create a post endpoint so we can create users by ourselves. But before we do that, we need to add some middleware to handle getting data from body requests and transform it into a JSON format. And that's very easy. So we'll go on the top of our server And just after the app definition, we'll do app dot use, and then we'll just say express dot JSON. Simple as that. And I'll say here I'm middleware. Okay, I fix my spelling. Great. Now, what we can do is go back to our route, and what we'll do, we'll create a post call, okay? And what I will do, I'll just paste some code quickly. And basically here, all what we are doing is just we're creating a post call. So before we can get, now we can create a new user in slash users endpoint, okay? We are reading the details of the new user from our request body, and then the new user will just push into the array we defined earlier. So this one basically will be a let, not a const. And then after that was just giving back a response with a status of 2 on 1 and a message saying user created, and also passing on the new user. Okay, now let's go and test this as well and see if it's working. I'll go back to my Postman, and instead of get, I'll do post. And then into slash, we have slash APSS users, which is good. Now I will go to the body, I will go to row, and what I will do, I will just add a new user here as an object with UI ID as chain and as a password as my password. Great. Now let's test this as well, see if it's working. And you can see I got a 201 response, successfully created my new user. And this is the message we are sending as a response. So message is user created, and our new user is UID chain, and password is set to my password. If I want to test again, this is all good. I can do the get call, and inside of row, I'll just do none and send. And now I'm getting back 3 users. So 2 were hard coded and 1 I just created. Now storing plain text password is like leaving your door open with a neon sign saying come in. So we have to fix this. So first thing, stop your server and go and install this package. So npm install bcrypt, okay, bcrypt, and hit enter. Now, once that one installed, we go back to our users route and let's fix our create route. Okay. So first thing is that we need to hash the password, but let me first import a new library. So import bcrypt. And then what I will do, I'll remove these hard-coded users we created, and I'll define a new array of the users, which is an empty array at the moment, which will be our temporary in-memory storage. In real time, we'll be using actual database, but for this video, we'll just keep it very simple at the moment because we're just learning about authentication. Now we have a place where we store our users. We'll go back to our post call to create a new user. Okay. And in this lane, instead of accessing the full object itself, I will destructure it and access the properties. So let's say I will have a password and also I will have a username. Okay. So after that, what I want to do before anything else is to hash the password. Okay. So if you're thinking why we hash a password, so storing that plain text password is risky. So instead, we will use the bcrypt to hash password before storing them. And also we will use something called salt to make the hashes unique for each password. For example, there are many people using like 000 as a password, right? But how we know that each these passwords is for specific users? To do that, we add some salt, okay? And we will see how we'll be doing that as well. So for now, what we will do, let's just hash the password, and I'll create const hashed password, okay? And that will be equal to await our bcrypt library, and that's have built-in function called hash. Okay, so it will do all the work for us, and I will give it a parameter as a password. And you can see here it have a salt property as well, and it is defaulted to 10. Okay, so what I will do is a second parameter. I'll just pass again 10 as default value. So it makes sense. So this one you can change it, but just keep in mind as much as this number is bigger, that means your server will take longer time to create this hash password for you. Now you can see that my await have a red line under it. That's because it needs to be within an async function. So I'll make my request an async request right here. So that is all good. Now next thing is to create our new user. And our new user will define it. So const new user, and that will be equal to an object with a username. Oops, username equal to username that we're accessing here from the body request. Again, because the variables names are the same, I'll just use shortcut and remove this, comma. Then the second thing we'll be creating in our object is the password, of course, but we'll be passing on the hash password and not the actual password, okay? So hashed password. So this looks great. So now when we define our user, we just push it to our array and again come back with a status of 201 and we'll just send a message saying that we have created a user successfully. Okay. Now what we can do is just go and test this and see if it's still working. So run my server again. Oops, that is the installation. So run my server again and go back to my browser. Now, if you go back and do the send to get a list of users, it should be an empty array because we remove everything. Let's create one. So post call users and let's say raw data. Okay, I'm having username as Jane and so password set to my password. Okay, so let's create this new user. And you can see I got a 201 successful message with user created. Now, if I want to test that I really have a user, let's go to get call again, go here, click none, and then send. And you see I get again list of my users, so I only have one with the username as Jane, but you can see the password at the moment is hashed, okay? It's not the actual password I have written earlier. Now, before we move forward and create the login API endpoints to handle authentication, I want to do some refactoring. So basically this hashing functionality, we'll need it in many places. So what I will do, I will create a utils folder, which will handle that for me. So create a folder called utils, and then I'll create a new file that will be handling the hashing. So I'll call it bcrypthelpers.js. Okay, and inside this file basically I'll just paste some code, and all what I have done here is just created two functions, one to hash a password that takes in a password as an argument, then give me back the hashed version, okay, with default value for the salt to 10 as we said before. Then I create another util one that I will need it as well later, which is to compare the word password. Is my current password is similar to the hash one, okay, which you will need it later as I said, and you'll see how to implement this. Now I have my helpers. I can go back to my users and just fix this, okay? So I'll go up. Instead of importing the bcrypt, we'll import the hash password function util we create. Then we go back to our post call and we'll just go here and fix this. So instead of await bcrypt.hash, we'll await for our new function, which is hash password. And it just accepts one argument for now, which is the password. Okay, so this looks very cool at the moment. Now next step is to implement the JWT authentication. Okay, so we'll go inside our route, we'll add a new one which will handle the auth. Okay, so we'll do auth.js. And here basically we'll create some endpoints as well for authentication. Now I have pasted some code here so you don't see me slowly typing everything, but I will go step by step and explain you each line what it does. So first thing we have done, of course, is import the express so we can create an instance route for us. And also we import the JWT from JSON Web Token we installed earlier, and also the compare password util function we created as well. And then we are defining the same users array that's in memory users that we're using earlier for the users.js. The endpoints used for our user to log in, for example, to their application is /login. We should be taking a request with a body having username and password. Then here in the lane, all what we are doing, we're checking whatever we details we get do we have them stored in the in-memory users array? Okay, so that's here what we are doing. So we compare the username to find a user. Then we are checking here if the user doesn't exist, we're just giving a response back with 400, saying message not found. Otherwise, we are checking if the password is matching. So whatever password currently is sent by the user, does it match the current hash password stored in our users array? If there is no match, then we will say it is a 403 invalid credentials. Otherwise, again, if there is a match, then we generate a JWT token. Okay, so we use the JWT that we got from our package we installed earlier, and we will pass on and we'll call the sign function that takes in the username, the first object having a username, and then the second one is an access token secret that we'll see later in this chapter how to create it. Okay, then the third one is just an optional, but we're saying that this token will expire in 15 minutes. After all this, all what we're doing is just sending back this access token as our response. So we save this and then we export our router as we are doing for other routes. And then we go to our server, import the route and add it to our API so we can access it. Next thing to see is how to protect the routes. And to do that, we'll create a middleware. So I'll create a middleware folder. So new folder, middleware. And then I'll create a new file inside there, which is called middleware.js. And what I will do, I'll copy again and paste some code. And here all what we're doing is we define a function called Authenticate token, okay? And we are defining an auth header that's checking the authorization header within our request call. And then we are creating a token variable that stores the auth header, the value within our auth header authorization. Okay, so we are making sure first it exists. If it does, then access the value of it. Then here we're doing double check. If the token doesn't exist, then we have of course access denied. And if it does exist, then this is a happy path where we verify that our token using the token secret that we will create, it is a valid one. If an error is thrown, then we're giving a 403 invalid token. Otherwise, we are passing the user to our rig.user to make it available to our customers. Now, we save this. Next thing is to apply now the middleware to our /users API call. So we can go to user. Now next thing is to apply the middleware to our /users get call. And what we'll do is at the moment it only have two arguments, but we'll add another argument which will be now the second, which will make our function right here a third argument. And this one basically will be your authentication token we created, that middleware. So I'll go and import it first and then add that function as a second argument for my get call. So authenticate token. Great, so this way basically our logic is separated. So the routes are taking care of the routes and the middlewares are doing the actual job for authenticating. Okay, now time to create our secret token. So I'll go inside my utils, I'll create a new file. Let's call it crypto, for example, because we'll be using that library to do it. And inside here, I'll just copy some code and paste it quickly. Import a crypto from the crypto library, and then we're just creating the secret by generating it from this crypto.randombyte64 to a hex string format. Then I'm constantly logging this to my terminal. So I'll go to my terminal and run this file, close my server, and then do node, and I'll say it is inside my utils folder, then crypto.js. Run this, and you can see I got my secret code, so I'll go ahead and copy that, and then I'll go inside my em file, and that will be my secret right here, but my key is a different key name, which is access token secret. So I'll go and paste that one right there, and this way you have your own secret token that you can use within your application. Next thing you want to do is go back to your environment and add your new key right there, and you can name it anything you like. I'll call it access token secret. Then I'm trying to read that new access token secret I just created in my EM file right there. Okay. Now this one is done. We need a way to load this. So we'll go back to our server right here. And you can see earlier I imported the config file, but I didn't use it yet. So what we can do before even you define your server, you need to make sure that .NET is loading your EM file at the top. So what I will do, I need to go and import, and then we'll go before defining our server, we say .env.config. And basically you just cancel log those properties if you want to. So if I go after defining my server and do cancel log, okay, and go and run my server, npm run dev, and you can see in my log I get in two. So first one is undefined, and if you remember we don't have actually the other value yet, because we don't have the GW secret yet, it's just sitting there. But at the moment we have the access token secret, and I can see it here cancel logged right there. Now just be careful and aware of this. We are storing these keys in the EM file because we don't want to share them with anyone, okay? They are secret keys, so never store them or hard code them anywhere in your project. Now, this is a lot we cover in this chapter, and I know it's too much and it can be overwhelming. So make sure you pause this video whenever you want at some point and try to write your code by yourself and take your time to adjust the new concept, okay? Okay, now let's test all this work we have been doing for some time now. So we're going to create first a new user. Okay, so we'll do the post and we'll use our API/API/users. Okay, and then we'll use the raw one. And let's change this. I'll say username is Lulu and my Lulu is my password. Okay, and let's send this one and see how it will work. And there we go, we got a 201 that has been created successfully. Okay, now let's send a post call login endpoint. Okay, so let's go to let's create a new tab actually, and let's do a post call. So something in my mind now while I'm writing this I need to fix is, for example, the auth route, I don't want it to be on /API. Let's say it is in /auth. So we create a different relative route for it. And what I will do, I will go right here and I will do localhost 3000 /auth /login. Okay. So if you remember the route we created earlier again, let me open our code and say auth in our routes. And that is the endpoint we created for the post call. Okay, so /login, and that is a post call. And what I will do, I will try again going to my body, the row. And if you remember, the username was Lulu. Oops, it should be double quotes. So Lulu. And my password, if I remember properly, I'm so bad at this, password was my Lulu. And let me double check, that's the one I did here. So yeah, Lulu and my Lulu. Now let's make a call and let's see what will happen with this. Okay, so we'll go and click send and get here a 404. I think the reason why, and that's because if you remember the way we write our code earlier is that we are defining a new const for the users within our auth. There is no way that this one knows about our actual users in our users route. So what I will do now is I will create a mock, I'll create a new file which will be like a memory for me. And again, remember in real time you'll be using actual database. So I will call this users.js. And here basically I will define a export const, or actually less because we'll be changing users. That will be initialized on empty array, okay? And what we'll do in our users, we will be actually using that to store the new users. So import users from our users file, and we'll remove this from here. So we have a single place to access and store. And same thing in our auth, we will do the same thing. So we'll import users from our users.js, and we will not be reading again from the constant here. Okay. Now after my change, just to be safe, I'll stop again my server and run it again in npm run dev. And let's test this again. So here we learn actually debugging, how you can find issues and fix them. And that's why I make sure I have issues through this course as well. So you can learn how to solve a problem, because you'll be always facing problems when you are developing anything in the code. So um, don't feel frustrated with this. Now let's go and do the same thing again. So in the post call, we'll go to our users. I'll create again my new user. Let's send this. And there we go. I got message user created 201. Now let's go and try to authenticate. So I have /auth/login. I'm using same username and password. Now let's send this. And there we go. I got a 200 response back, and I got my access token back hashed as well. So this is better than actually storing your actual password, right? Now we have done a lot of things. Good work, everyone. You have successfully created an authenticated app. With this code in place, go ahead, stop the video, go through it again. And as a task for you, I want the /orders API also to be authenticated. So make sure to have fun, keep taking breaks, and keep learning. So far, we have learned how to build routes, manage users, and create a secure login system with JWT. But what good is all of that if we can't show personalized data for our users? Now, we'll take this to the next level by displaying orders for a specific logged in users only. Yes, you heard that right. Every user will see only their orders, thanks to the magic of authentication and middleware as well. So let's dive right into it. First thing, we will go to our orders route, and I'll update the mock data. If you remember the last chapter, we are not using UID anymore. We are actually using the user name field at the moment. Okay, so I'll change this and also make sure I have more data too. So I'll go and update this one. So each order has a unique ID, the username of the customer, the item they purchased, and also the price. Now we will go and update our route to display orders for the logged in users. And this is where the mesh is going to happen. So inside our route definition, we will go and create a new constant. I'll say const users user orders. And that will be all equal to orders. So we'll do some filtering here, dot filter. And we filter orders in a way that we check if the order dot username is it equal to the request dot user dot username. So is it equal to the username who is currently authenticated? To give us back a list of the orders, that's the one now we will be passing back as our response instead of passing all the orders. Now, for the filtering, we are filtering the orders again array to only include orders where the username matches the logged in user's username. And if you're still confused about this part, remember our authentication token middleware. This is where the magic happens. It takes in the token from the authorization header, verifies it, and sets it to the rec.user, so request.user, to the decoded payloader, which make it available to us in our application. This middleware ensures that only authenticated users can access the /orders route. Okay, now this looks great. Now time to go and test all this. So before I do that, I'll just update the usernames, actually something I can remember. So I say Lulu, the other one will be Lulu1, and other one One will be Lulu1 and other one will be Lulu2. So I can remember the usernames. Great. Now let's go and run our server. So npm run dev. Let this run. And this one looked great. Okay, I can see my server is running. Now time to open Postman. At first, I need to log in, right? So I will go open new tab and I will say it is localhost/login. Then in my body, I'll go and click row. Then I will try to log in with a username. Great. So let's go and try to log in. And this one will fail because we don't have this user. So let's go first and create it. So remember, because we are not using actual database, every time we stop our server and we run it again, we have to start fresh. That will be to /API/our user route. So let's go back to my Postman. So /API/users. And this is the object I will be passing. So username Lulu and password is testme. Let's create this username. You can see in 201 created. Now let's go and do a get call. And let's do now auth/login. Okay. And the body, I'll keep the same username and password that I created. And let's send. And that should be actually a post call. And let's go send again. And there we go, 200, and I have my access token coming back successfully. Now, let's try our /orders and see if we are able to get only a single order for that user. Because if you remember the hard-coded data that we have at the moment, Lulu as a username only have one item in the order, okay? But in total, we have 3 orders. So let's go and test this. So we say /API/orders. And that will be a get call, and there is no body for it. And let's send. And that one failed because we passed the authorization header to our API. If you go back to our code and we go to the middleware we created, it's looking at a property in our headers called authorization, okay, and which is a string, and the second value is actually your token, okay. So we need to pass that in our header request. Now I'll go back to Postman. You remember when you authenticated, you get an access token, you copy that, then go back to your API call, go into headers, add authorization, then the value should be bearer, space, and then your token right there. And make sure, of course, it's selected, and then click send, and there we go. I got a 200 response back with the list of orders, and I only have one single order at the moment, okay, for that username. Now you can go ahead, stop the video, and try with different combinations with different users and see how you go with that. Up to our last chapter, we explored how to secure user data with JWT. But what happens when you scale your app with multiple servers? How can we ensure authentication works seamlessly across all of them? Now we are going to dive into the power of JSON Web Tokens in a modular multi-server setup. So let's get started. First thing is setting up our stage for multiple servers. So modern apps are often deployed on multiple servers to balance traffic and improve scalability. With a session-based approach, users can get logged out if their request lands on a different server. That's where JSON Web Token shines. They make authentication stateless, ensuring every single server can handle the same token. So let's see this in action. If you remember, we have created a server that we were working with up to our last chapter, okay? And we created in a separate file and it's listening onto the port 3000, okay? Now what I will do is I will create a second server file called server2. So I'll come here, it's a new folder, that is server2. And that will have our index.js. And for now, all what I will do, I will just copy whatever our first server is doing, fix the imports, then go down and basically we'll just change to the port. Let's say for example 4000. First server is listening to the port 3000 and our second one is listening to 4000. I'll change this one also to start server too. So we have a different names for our scripts. Great. Now we save this and let's go back to our package.json and same we did here dev script to run our first server. I'll copy and paste and I will call this start dev2 for example. And then nodeman and that will be pointing to our new file which is server 2 slash index.js. Great. Now let's go ahead and run our second server. I'll stop my terminal and I'll say npm run start dev2 and let this run and hopefully everything is working fine. And there we go. I can see that my server is running now on my local host 4000. Now both our servers need to share the same access token secret to verify the token, which we have already modularized this in the config/em file earlier. And also what it will do, we'll go and run our other server as well. So npm run dev. So we have two servers running on two ports. Now next thing is to go to Postman and we'll try first to create a user and we'll create a user on the first server which is listening to port 3000. Okay, so 3000/API/users, a post call, and I have a username set to Lulu and password set to my Lulu. Let's create this. And there we go, my user is created. Create a postcode to authenticate. So we'll do slash or open new one actually and create a postcode to localhost/auth/login and we will have the body is set to same thing. So user, let's go now and authenticate with this. And there we go, are successfully authenticated with our access token. So I'm going to copy that as well. Now next thing I want to do basically is try to get the orders on my first server, which should work, right? So we go open a new tab as well. I will say /orders, go to my header and open add authorization. Then the value, bearer, space, and my token. Okay, now let's send this. And there we go, we get successfully a 200 response as we did earlier. Now let's try the magic. We'll try to access the same thing but from the second server. Now open a new tab, a get call localhost for orders, but instead of using the port 3000, I will use the 4000 for second port. Okay, and same I'll go to the header, add authorization, and I'll add my token as well. Let's click send. And there we go, second server using the same token. I'm able to access my data as well. So boom, both servers can basically authenticate the token seamlessly. And this is how it works so well. And here is why this works so well. So JWT is a stateless, meaning no server has to save session data. The token itself contains all the information needed to authenticate the user. And this is perfect for scaling and microservices. So with session-based authentication, you need a workaround like sticky sessions or session replication. With JWT, authentication stays simple and lightweight. Now let's dive into refresh tokens, a key part of building secure and scalable applications. And don't worry, I'll break this down like we are having a coffee and a chat. So let's get started. So picture this, you are logging into your favorite app, and when you log in, you get a little digital pass, an access token, that lets you use the app. This pass has an expiration time. Why? Because if a hacker gets their hand on your pass, you don't want them to use it forever, right? That's where refreshing tokens comes in. They are like your backstage pass to get new access tokens when the old one expires. Now you may be asking, why do we need them? Now our tokens, they expire, but let's assume they don't. It is super risky. If someone grabs it, they have an endless access to your profile. Refresh tokens fix this by making access tokens short-lived, allowing you to get a new access token with the refresh token and keep things secure and under control. And oh, and refresh tokens are stored safely, like in HTTP-only cookies, where JavaScript can't touch them at all. Chapter will separate the authentication into its own server, and we'll call it Auth server. So the Auth server will handle logins, tokens refresh, and the logouts as well. The existing server we created initially, that becomes a resource server, focusing on stuff like your orders and user data. So let's go and start fixing this. Lucky for us, we created a second server earlier, so we call it server 2. So I will go and rename this. I'll say rename, I'll say auth server. Open it up. And then we'll do some fixing here. So basically, I want this to only handle authentications. So what I will have to do is I will have to remove the orders and remove the users as well. Okay, so we will keep only the auth route at the moment. Also, what I will do is that I'll go to my previous server folder and I created the auth route inside there. So I will go and copy this or actually cut it and move it into my new server. Also, I'll create a new route folder and I'll paste this one right there. Okay, so I want my things to be super organized. So I'm keeping my actual routes related to the server within the same folder, which means this one for me is already fixed Visual Studio Code. So I'll remove all other imports and we'll just keep it clean like this. So here what I have done basically, we only have the auth route within our auth server and we are only accessing that route here as well. Okay, now I'll go back to my auth route and I want to do a few modifications just for the testing for this demo. Okay, I'll keep this one open because we have to come back to it and create our refresh token. So what I will do, I'll go clean up my other server, which is this one basically. And before we used to access the auth route, I will go and remove that. So we only have users and orders. Also remove the import. I remove this one from here as well. And I will just remove the definition function and make everything available for me right there. Okay, so same I have done here as well. So directly listening. Now we have two different servers running for two different things. One to handle authentication and other one to handle resources. So here what I will do, rename also this one. Great. Now next is to go to our package.json. And what I will do here, we had before other scripts. So dev for the dev environment and start dev2 to run the second server. So for now, I will just fix this. So I'll make this one, for example, it is the resource. And this one, I'll call it auth server. So it's meaningful. Okay. And here basically will not be running that main server file we created, but we'll be going inside our resource slash resource server slash index.js, and the auth server that will be going now to auth dash server slash index.js. Great. So now we have our server separated, everyone doing its own job, and also we have two different scripts to run both servers next to each other. Great. Now done with the refactoring, let's go actually and start adding the code to handle the generation for our refresh token. So to do that, I'll go inside my auth route and inside our logging. So Previously, we just created one secret key. So I'll open my env file, which was, I'm going to open my env file, the other one, the configuration. So we only had access token secret, but I need also a refresh token secret as well. Now to generate it, it's very simple. It's almost what we have done for the access token. So I created before a file for access token and then run node define name. But this time I'll just do it directly for my terminal. So I'll just paste this command. So node -e cancel log require crypto.random byte to string hex. So this will generate for me a new refresh token access. And it's the same thing what we have done earlier in this file as well, if you see. Okay, I will just cancel login there. Now I'll just go and hit enter, and this is a new key icon, so I'll go and copy this, and then I'll create a new key. I'll call it refresh token secret, and that will be equal to my new key. Okay, so because we have done that, we have to add it to our env configuration. So I'll come here, I'll say this is refresh, oops, I have to make it lowercase, refresh token secret, and that will be from process.env.refresh token secret. Good. Now we created our refresh token. Now time to go back to our auth file. Now next thing we'll do is, after our access token generation, we'll go and generate as well our refresh token. Okay, so const refresh token, and that will be equal to JWT dot sign, same as we are doing before. Then we will pass on the username. Then the second we want to pass is the refresh token. Okay, same as we did here for access token. Now we will access the refresh token. So we say process.env.refresh token, and let me actually go and copy it to avoid any problems. And this is basically our super secret key that makes the token very secure, and only server knows about it. Now why we are doing this? The refresh token is like, a backstage pass. If the main access token expires, you can use this refresh token to get a new one without logging in again. Okay? We need to create in-memory storage for our refresh tokens. Okay, and this is just for this demo purpose. I'll call it refresh tokens. Then go back to my code, and then I have to push my new token to that array. So refresh tokens dot push, and we'll push our new refresh token to that array. We are saving the newly created refresh token in a list which we'll call refresh token. And if you're asking why we are saving it, this will help the server keep track of which refresh tokens are valid. Later we'll check this list when someone tries to use a refresh token. Okay, now next thing is we need to update our response, and before we only send the access token, now we will also send back the refresh token as well. Okay, so again, if you're asking why we are doing, gives the client everything it needs to stay logged in. Use the access token for most things, use the refresh token when the access token expires. Now we are done with our /login, and it gives us back two tokens, the access token and a refresh token. But the refresh token from /login is a one-time issue for that session. But tokens, especially access tokens, have an expiration time to enhance security. And here's why. Access tokens again expire quickly to reduce risk if someone steals it. And refresh tokens can't last forever either. They are reusable for issuing new access tokens, but eventually they can also be invalidated manually or when the user logs out. So we need something else, another route will be /auth/token to handle the case when the access token expires but the refresh token is still valid. So I paste here some code quickly, which I'll explain lane by lane. So we defined a new route, which is for a post call, because we'll be creating a new token, and that will be to /auth/token. Okay, so basically we don't need that slash auth because that is a relative path, so we remove that. So it will be to slash auth slash token, and it takes in a request and a response as well. So the first thing in the lane 36, we are grabbing the refresh token from the request body. That is the data we sent by the user earlier. And why we do this is the user needs to provide the refresh token so we can verify it. After that, we are going here and the lane 37, and we are checking if the refresh token doesn't exist. So if the user doesn't send a refresh token, we respond with a 401 status code, unauthorized, and an error message. And again, why we are doing this is that without a refresh token, we can't again verify the user or give them a new access token. Then in the line 38, we are checking if the refresh token is in our refresh tokens list, the array we created earlier. If it's not there, we return a 403 status code forbidden and an error. And again, a question why we're doing this is that to ensure the refresh token is valid and hasn't been revoked or tampered with. Okay? Then the next thing we're doing in the line 41 is that we use the JWT verify method to check if the refresh token is legit. Then decode the token to get the user info like the username. And again, if you're asking why, this is to ensure the refresh token was created by our server and hasn't been altered as well. Now the callback we have here within the verify function is that if the refresh token is invalid, so if there is an error, we send again a 403 with invalid refresh token. And this is for security measure to stop hackers from misusing invalid tokens. Now, if it's all good and all clear off, the function of JWT.sign to create a new access token for the users, and also we're adding an expiry date of 15 seconds as well. And this basically the user need a refresh token to continue using the app. Then in the end, we are just resending the new access token back to the users in a JSON response, and this will let the user continue their session without logging in again every time. Now, why this whole process? So without this refresh token route, users will need to log in repeatedly when their access token expires. And there will be no way to securely issue new access tokens. So with this route, basically, access tokens expire quickly for security, refresh tokens act as a backup, create new access tokens. Now next thing I will do is add a quick route that will handle the logout functionality for us as well. So I'll do router and I'll paste some code here. I'll just do dot. So that's our post code should be to slash auth slash logout, but again, auth is a relative route. We don't need to add it here. So to the slash logout. So what we are doing basically, we're just accessing again the refresh token from our request body that we stored earlier. Then we are checking if that refresh token exists in our array that and if it does exist, then we are removing that refresh token, and then we are sending us requests with a response saying that you have logged out. It is very simple and straightforward. Now, with all this, let's start testing because we did a lot of things again in this chapter and see if this is working and we make sure we don't mess up anything. So I will go open up my terminal. And if you remember now we have two servers to run, so I need two terminals running. So I'll just open up my package.json and I make sure I have the names correct. So now I made a few changes to be able to test all this. So the first access token we generated, I give it a validity of 1 minute. Okay, so I have a little bit time so I can get a list of orders and then we can test it after that. Then the refresh token we generate that expires in 5 minutes. Then we store it. For the slash token route, when that one is triggers, it generates for us a token or create a new token using that fresh token, okay? But for this option here, we can't add expiry date at the moment. Great. Now let's save this, run my server. I'll close this as well. So run my resource server and then run my auth server as well. So they are running both of them, which is good. Now open up your Postman. So first we need to create a user. So /API/users on 4000 port, click row. So that's my username and password. Let's create one. So 201 created successfully. Great. Now let's log in. Again, row, using same details. Send. And there we go. So I get my access token and my refresh token. So let's do this quickly. Copy this and go to your orders API, add a head of authorization, bearer space, and then your access token. Great. Let's send. And there we go, successfully I got my list of orders for the authenticated user. Now I'll wait a minute and try again. After 1 minute, when I click send, I get a 403 invalid token. Now let's go and generate new one. So I have to copy the refresh token we got earlier. And if you remember, that expires in 5 minutes. So already 2 minutes are gone, I think now. Now we go to our /auth/token and we go to row and we pass on an object with refresh token and we pass on the code for our actual refresh token we got now. Great. Let's send. And there we go. I got back now an access token, a new one. So I'll copy this access token, go back to my orders, which failed, and add that access token as my current one. And let's click send. And there we go. Successfully, we get our list of orders using a new token generated using the /auth/token API.
And that's a wrap, folks. I hope you found this tutorial helpful and that it gave you the confidence to tackle your next project, whether it's in front-end development, Node.js, or building powerful full-stack applications. But hey, don't stop here. Your learning journey is just beginning. If you have any questions or got stuck at any step, drop a comment below. I love hearing from you, and I personally reply to as many as I can. If there's a topic you'd like me to cover next, let me know. Your feedback helps shape this channel. Also, don't forget to like this video if you learned something new. It really helps spread the word. Share it with your fellow developers who are ready to level up their skills. Subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon so you don't miss any of my upcoming tutorials. Together, we're building a community of passionate developers who are mastering front-end magic and back-end power one step at a time. Thanks for watching, and as always, happy coding. See you in the next video.